Capitalism relies on the assumption that we all live in a supply and demand economy. The idea is if there is a lower supply of something, then there will be a higher demand of it, and if there is a higher supply of it, there will be a lower demand of it, and no matter what, if there is a demand of something, there will be supply. This assumption goes with food and clothing and housing and land and so many other things. And if there's one thing that I've learned from being on the internet, it's that there's an insanely massive demand for sex. And I don't just mean like everyday sex, I mean the weird stuff, like the really weird stuff that you only find on Tumblr. Or should I say used to find on Tumblr, because that's going to be part of this video. What I want to do with this video is explain why the OnlyFans situation is happening and kind of get into why we don't actually live in a free society. No matter where you are, you're being ruled by oligarchs. Hi, my name is Hades. I'm a relatively new leftist creator, and hopefully I'll be able to ride on this wave of controversy to like 5 views. So OnlyFans is a mobile app or website or whatever you want to call it that rose to prominence during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic because everyone had a lot of time at home and they had a lot of spare time on their hands, if you know what I mean. And not only that, a lot of people found themselves not having a lot of work, so they needed to look at alternative ways of making money. In steps OnlyFans with the fantastic deal. See, quarantine was an unprecedentedly horny time for the populace. As I said before, no one really knew what to do with their hands, so most people were just cranking off, man. Like, let's just be honest, most people were. A lot of people needed new things to crank off to at some point, and OnlyFans gave a method for influencers who had ran out of work to make a little bit of money. It's been said that prostitution is the world's oldest profession, and I believe that there's a little bit of truth to this because there's always been an insane demand for sex. This demand was exacerbated by the pandemic and the lockdowns, and sex workers and influencers met this demand with their own supply. And OnlyFans was incredibly regulated, so a lot of the money was going to the sex workers themselves. It was a good deal. I mean, the biggest problem with sex work on the streets is the lack of regulation, and due to that, a lot of the sex workers are in danger of being beaten or trafficked or turned into sex slaves, and that's not good, obviously. People like to talk about how, women should respect themselves and that's why they shouldn't get into sex work. But I believe that if we live in a society which is based off of liberty, then women should be allowed to do whatever they want. In fact, all people should be allowed to do whatever they want with their bodies. As long as they are not actually harming other people or themselves, this should not matter. Sex work simply fulfills the rules of supply and demand. There is a demand for sex and there is a supply for sex. I genuinely don't see the problem here. What about HIV, AIDS, and syphilis and whatever? There's been a very easy response to that question for hundreds of years now. Condoms. If third world countries in the middle of Africa can supply condoms for free, I am sure that the rest of the world can.
Oh, but what about my religion? You see, we hate sex workers.
See, frankly, I don't really care who you like or who you hate. You're not the arbiter of morality here. Dude, I just want women to respect themselves the way that I respect them, you know? I don't think that you give a shit about women. I think that if you cared about women, you would want to give them the liberty to do whatever they want with their body the way that you do. The reason I know that you don't care about women is because you don't use those same arguments against male sex workers. Okay, have we all accepted that sex work is completely valid? Good? Okay, great. All right, let's keep going. So OnlyFans was doing incredibly well, at one point having over 100 million users at the same time. To be clear, that's over 100 million people paying for porn at the same time. Now, to be fair, a fairly large chunk of these users weren't actually going for the porn. They were going for the other users and celebrities who were on the app, but still a pretty large chunk of all of the revenue went to OnlyFans sex workers. I'm sure that we all heard about Bella Thorne, the ex-Disney star, bringing in over $1 million on her first day on OnlyFans. And I'm sure you all heard of Danielle Bergoli breaking that record with making over $1 million in the first 6 hours. All of that is to say, you can make a shit ton of money on OnlyFans, and you cannot blame people for wanting to get in on this. There are creators who are taking home millions of dollars every month for showing off their body. That's it. And despite the fact that the people who you can see on screen mostly don't post pornographic content on their OnlyFans pages. It is still an indisputable fact that OnlyFans gets most of its money from porn stars and sex workers. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would OnlyFans do this? They were making billions of dollars. Why would they change their business plan so suddenly? Well, it's actually pretty simple. They couldn't pay their bills because credit card companies didn't like them. I'm kidding, it's not actually that simple. But yeah, it is a pretty complicated question, all things considered. To find out why we're in a situation like this, we have to go back to one of the most dreaded companies of all time. Yes, I'm talking about Tumblr. Tumblr started out as a very basic blog website where people could put down their daily thoughts of the day. It was honestly kind of like a longer version of Twitter, which is just as bad as it sounds. And it had a habit of welcoming certain communities that probably should have never been there, just like Twitter. And this led to some of the most nefarious and disgusting communities ending up on Tumblr. Like Nazis or furries or Nazi furries. What the fuck is this? Side note, I don't actually care if you're a furry. As long as you're not hurting anyone or anything, honestly do whatever you want. Anyway, along the process, it ended up becoming basically a sex app where people could post nudes and stuff. And as is the trend with a lot of these porn sites, they ended up getting a lot of revenge porn, which is illegal. And then they got child porn, which is even more illegal. This led to the credit card companies not wanting to work with Tumblr and Apple actually taking them off the App Store, which is perfectly fine since these are all private companies and they should be held accountable for their actions. A similar thing happened with MindGeek, which owns practically every single porn site in existence, where credit card companies were refusing to pay MindGeek until they took certain kind of content off of their pages. Now, personally, I believe an ethical business would have taken these revenge porn videos off anyway, but they needed to be incentivized with money because, you know, capitalism. Welcome to the greatest system in the world, fellas, where a company needs to be incentivized to take child porn off their website. Okay, but what does this all have to do with OnlyFans? Well, OnlyFans primarily deals in pornography, so they're going to be held to the same standards that all these other websites were held to. The governments of America and the UK requested investigations into OnlyFans to find out how much illegal or exploitative material they had. OnlyFans agreed to this and found that they had roughly 15 accounts that were posting underage content. OnlyFans promptly deleted all of these accounts, but the payment companies still felt uncomfortable. So now OnlyFans was given a practically impossible choice. Find other companies to do your payments, but due to capitalism's affinity for monopolies, that's practically impossible right now, or ban all sexual content. Either way, they're going to lose a shit ton of money, so which one makes them lose money slower? To be clear, I don't have an ethical answer to this question myself. I believe that anyone who pretends to know exactly what to do here is either morally bankrupt or just doesn't understand the situation. Regardless of how you feel about sex work, it's brought a lot of money to people who needed it during quarantine. And let's be honest, with the lockdowns and everything, it brought a lot of people a really good time. What I do know though is no one elected these credit card, debit card companies to the places that they are right now. So to give them the power to decide whether or not a sex worker gets to eat tonight is not fair at all. It's not only non-democratic, it's anti-capitalism and anti-socialism. It's just anti-everyone. I also have a few friends who are in the sex worker industry and they appreciate OnlyFans a lot, and if they appreciate it, then I appreciate it because I like it when my friends are happy. I remember seeing this BuzzFeed article which basically explains how a lot of OnlyFans models feel about the website, so I'm just going to read it out loud for anyone who's interested. Thanks to COVID, I lost my job twice. Without the supplemented income, I wouldn't be able to pay my bills. The website can sometimes be a bit finicky, and it can occasionally take hours for your media to process, but it's absolutely worth it. My subscribers followed me over from Reddit, so I did already have a small following before I started. But if you want me to make big money, you really have to grind and promote. I think a lot of the time we forget that this is literally saving people from being on the streets, you know? And beyond that, these models have put an insane amount of time and work and effort into this, and they're gonna have to watch it all crash down in front of them for no reason other than some random guys decided to. But then on the flip side of that is, do you really want to work on an app or website that does have some child porn on it. I mean, granted, it wasn't very much, but still, are you okay with that possibility morally? I think that realistically, it all comes down to how much you're willing to regulate your company, but frankly, I don't actually know what that would look like for OnlyFans, considering it's a sex site. I just hope that they figure out a good answer, because a lot of people are gonna lose their income soon if nothing changes. Yep, that's it. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. Bye.